So I was born in Iran. I've only lived in my country of origin for 3 years. And after that, I started to become and eventually became a European. But usually when I'm invited to go and perform somewhere as a storyteller, I get up and I say, my name is Sunday Sahib Divani, son of storyteller Ali Reza Sahib Divani, grandson of Shahpur Sahib Divani, great-grandson of Reza Sahib Divani, great-great-grandson of Ali Sahib Divani. And usually this is the moment that I get a thunderous applause. And of course, the biggest reason for that is that it's very boring to get up and say, I'm a European storyteller. So I milk those 3 years. I milk my Iranian roots to the fullest. And oftentimes I get invited by Europeans who then know that I will come and I will do something cute and Iranian. I might, for instance, tell them that when I fled Iran to look for a better life, of course, not that I did it myself, when my parents fled, that there is this hope in their eyes that we chose Europe, specifically the Netherlands, specifically Amsterdam, because it was the place where my parents could be free and read the books they wanted to read, and it wouldn't put them in jail like it had done in Iran. And I often disappoint them by saying that, well, when we fled over the mountains and we went into Turkey, we bought tickets to go to Canada, and we missed our flight at Schiphol Airport. And this is, honest to God, the reason why I am a European today. It happens. Well, I sometimes might even add that my mother, when very terrified, she was taken aside by these very Dutch, tall military police people at Schiphol Airport, and they took her with this 3-year-old kid, and they asked her, well, Mrs., what do you even know about the Netherlands? Why do you want to stay here? And she could only mention 4 things, which were, of course, cheese, tulips, windmills, and the Hague Tribunal. That is honestly what she knew about the Netherlands, being Iranian and having been through all the international crises. But we remained, and we're very happy to be here. And this process of becoming European started. And even though I often tell the Iranian stories, I have a very personal stories of the moment that I fully felt European. And I thought, after all these very technical stories, let me tell you just a very heartfelt story of me and my Europeanness. When you're from the Middle East, you're often claimed by a very particular tribe, and people often want you to be claimed. There is a lot of confusion about who you are, and it has to be very clear. I felt that when, for the first time, I was invited to go and perform in Israel, where a journalist of the Haaretz called me. And you see, in Europe, we're all kind of mixed, and we all can be kind of everything and from everywhere, and we are very fluid in our identities. But this journalist, she was very strict. She said, so Mr. Sahib Divani, you're coming to perform in Israel, so I assume that you're a Muslim. And I said, well, I'm secular, I don't identify as Muslim. And she said, oh, well, I can't write that you're not a Muslim because we have Iranian Jews in Israel, and it's now very particular that a Dutch person of Iranian descent who's Muslim is coming. And I said, but that would be a lie. So she said, are your parents Muslim? And I said, well, they were Marxist activists, and they were in jail for being Marxist, they're secular. Can you write Marxist Iranian? No. Well, are your grandparents Muslim? I said, well, okay, if you go back long enough, then I assume you can write. She said, that's good. I will write down secular Muslim Iranian. I have a follow-up question, she said. Are you a secular Muslim Shia Muslim or a secular Muslim Sunni Muslim? So I realized going to Israel, that's what it happens. You're from the Middle East, you go back to the Middle East, you're immediately claimed, you're put in that little box. But I came here to tell you my European story, right? This is just all adding context. For me, it was when I was 26, and I had formed a band. And my band members, we played our interpretation of Balkan music. We were all this hodgepodge mix of people living in Amsterdam, most of them very active in the squatters community, in the anarchist movement. And by the way, if you ask my father what is really properly European, it's that. Because when he came to the Netherlands in the 80s and all the political dissidents who had stayed behind were being killed in Iran, and that handful of Iranians who were still trying to sort of protest in Amsterdam and do something about it, the first thing that he encountered was a bunch of people that came to him at Dam Square when they were, 40 Iranians with misspelled banners trying to get attention for the plight of the Iranians. people who would come with spiky green hair and lots of metal in their ears. And my father was a bit freaked out. And it turned out that they were the nicest Europeans that you could imagine. Because they were the ones who said, well, first of all, you're going to protest. These numbers, they don't amount to anything, so we're going to invite 200 of our friends. So then it's 240. Second of all, when the police comes, they're going to try to do this and this, which they're allowed to, and they're going to try to do this and this, which they're not allowed to. And they assume that you don't know the difference. So these are your rights. They explain it to us. And by the way, if you do end up being arrested, these are the numbers of free lawyers that will help you out because they believe in your cause. And this is how we ended up growing up in this society. And for me, it was always, it was this crazy mix of people. And still, if you go to the Frankrijk, if you go to any squatter place in Amsterdam, you will see them sitting there, the Basque people over here, the Greek anarchists, the Italian anarchists, and it's all kind of mixed and there is no borders and everyone believes in their version, their vision of this sort of European project, this global, this universal, this borderless, this alternative economies. And how amazing was it that at the age of 26, I suddenly had a band of musicians from this scene with a British accordionist whose parents were Iranian Jewish, a violinist from Berlin, a guitar player from Frankfurt, and of course, because our idea of Europe was much bigger, we also had a bassist from Uruguay and a violinist from New Orleans. And we bought a bus in Zeeland for €1,000, and we thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go to Eastern Europe, which is now also part of Europe, and we're going to go back to the places where the music that we love came from, where we made this Amsterdam anarchist version of this music, and we're going to go back and play this music for them. And I, of course, told them how when I just arrived in Europe, in Amsterdam, how this was impossible, because then even going to France was a problem, because some of your Iranian friends already had passports that allowed them to cross the border, and other friends, I remember as a kid, were stopped in the Eurolines bus and you couldn't move on. So what a beautiful new European world do we live in. And we ended up, you know, in this borderless world, going to Hungary, meeting a lot of very depressed people because their European adventure hadn't been so nice. They were all just like, oh, we were so positive when we joined Europe, and now we're very depressed. And some of us were like, oh, we're doubting this European project. Other ones of us realized that Hungarians are depressed regardless of what happens. They even have their national anthem has lines about, oh God, why do you make us suffer so? This is their national anthem. Walking around in Hungary, we went to Vienna, where, you know, we were told that here, Budapest, this is where the border of Europe was when the Ottomans, the evil Asians, they came and they managed to take one side of the border. And 200 years, one part was Asia, one part was Europe. And finally, after 200 years of resistance, the Europeans managed to kick everyone out. And they proudly showed us statues of their national heroes, people with names like Istvan Turk Smasher and Arpad Turk Strangler. And I realized you get a statue in Hungary when you kill enough Turks. And I realized I'm looking more like a Turk than like a Hungarian. So we moved on. We went to Croatia, where the European adventure was even younger, where they had even more recently joined this adventure and this new thing, and they were very positive. I asked them, like, how are you guys feeling about being European? They said, it's the best, it's amazing. And I said, well, the Hungarians, they were not all of them so positive. And they said, well, for us, it's all been very exciting and we love it. And I said, well, what are the things that you love about? And they said, well, we can now proudly call ourselves European. And we love the fact that the Serbians are not having any part of this pie. And one of them very proudly came up to me and gave me this joke and said, hey, do you know when the Turks will join the EU? And I said, oh, again, with the Turks? And they said, no, hear me out, you love this. When will the Turks join? I said, I don't know. They said, well, never. And but that wasn't the joke. They went on. They said, do you know when the Serbians will join the EU? And I said, I don't know. And they said, 3 years after the Turks. Yeah. So like this, we went around. We also tried to go to Serbia. That's the moment that we were stopped because them not being part of the EU meant that some of the passports of some of the band members were not valid, didn't allow them to go in. By the way, one of the border patrols, he stopped me and looked at my passport, which was a Dutch European passport, but he saw my place of birth, Tehran, looked at me in the eye and said, Islamovic. And I thought, well, at least I'm part of the EU. For you, it will take 3 years after Turkey to join. And I went away. But the most beautiful European moment for me, it was when we were still looking for this heartland of the music. We played all this Hungarian gypsy music. At some point, we wanted to play it, and we went to a place in Romania, in the Hungarian-speaking part of Romania. We had Googled that in a place called Brijlop, there is a music festival, and we would like to go for it. And we ended up there. I was the first one to be awake. I'm the only one without a driver's license, so I usually sleep when the tour bus is going around. So I'm the first one who always gets up. And I found myself next to this beautiful valley. There were some cows walking around the valley, some horses. One of the cows came up. I realized we had put our tents next to this drinking place for the cows, and the cow looked at me, drank some of the water. And I decided to go into the village to check out this festival. And walking into the village, I realized that this part of Europe has not really changed for a couple of centuries. A guy passed me in a horse cart, looked at me with a lot of suspicion, maybe thinking, oh, the Turks are back, I don't know. But I moved on. And I found this house where there was this older gentleman standing there with a red nose, and he said, ugh. And this is the language that I spoke very well, because we've been in the region for quite a while. It means, come and join me in my house. I will give you a very strong alcoholic beverage, even though it's now 8 o'clock in the morning. So I did. I went into the house. I saw him. He gave me the palinka, and his 2 granddaughters were there. Now, this gentleman who lived in this part of Europe, which might have been Hungary when he was born, which is now Romania, spoke a bunch of languages that I didn't speak. I spoke a bunch of languages that he didn't speak. But he had granddaughters that listened to the Spanish telenovelas. So they spoke TV Spanish. I spoke high school French. We had enough common words for me to explain. We are here for the music festival, which they said to their grandfather, and grandfather said there is no there's nothing. You're mistaken. And I tried to explain internet, Google, 21st century. He was having nothing of it, and I had no choice but to go back to the band and to say, guys, it's not here. I think we made a mistake. I think it's weird. I don't know. People are not having it, it's not happening. So they were like, well, fine, you know what? Let's just at least go to the village and play a few songs, and then we'll go back. That's the end of the tour. So now there's not one stranger from Amsterdam, now there are suddenly 7, carrying instruments, walking into this village, and there is a bit of a panic in the village. One of the guys comes up to us, and it's this 19-year-old guy, and he says, stop, not move, not move. I come back, stop. And he runs off, and 10 minutes later, he has the town, the village priest by the hand. Now, the village priest is 1.90 meters. He's a tall guy. He's dressed in all black. He has an impressive red beard. And he comes and he says, what are you guys doing here? And we say, well, we're a band from Amsterdam, and we would like to play music for you. And he says, oh, okay, music, okay. Well, first I will show you my church. And he showed us in this tiny place, this church, this beautiful church, beautiful. Every square millimeter of it was an old painting. And this guy who lived in this village where there was, everything had stayed the same for 200 years, he was very happy to show some outsiders this beautiful church. He took out a laser pointer. And he showed us the Christian iconography, baby Jesus, Mother Mary, da-da-da-da-da. And then he showed me some images, and he said, well, this might remind you of some of the philosophies that exists in Islamic Sufism. And I'm like, what? Okay, interesting, yeah. And then he went on and he said, and this color scheme here, it actually has a lot of resemblance to Buddhist iconography. Okay. So we went out. It wasn't quite what we had expected, this guy, the way that he showed it to us. And also when we said that we wanted to play, he said, okay, my parents, they're the rich people of the village because they have a sawmill. They have a shed. At 7 o'clock is the mass. At 8 o'clock, I will bring the village and they will dance for you. I will dance. No, not dance. You can play and they will listen. That's what he said. You will listen. So that's what happens. At 8 o'clock, we're standing in the shed. We're looking out. We see that the church is going empty. The entire population of the village is walking out. Children in the front, parents, grandparents. And they walk into this church and they do so with a lot of hesitation. See this weird band and they sit around and they look at the priest and they look at themselves. What are we to make of this? And we play our music and we play. It's very lively music. Nothing. We play a second song even faster. Nothing. And then we say to each other, you know, guys, okay, we're going to play one more song, and if they don't like it, they don't like it. They don't have to like it. We'll just go back to Amsterdam. And we play our third song, and we play it as passionately as we can. And in the middle of the song, that's when the mother of the priest gets up. She goes into the middle of the shed, and she starts to dance like this. And she's quite a big woman. And when she's dancing, the people, they look at the priest, and the priest is like, yeah, come. And they start to dance. And it's the party that we were looking for. We play for an hour and a half. We play until our fingers are bloated and they're blue and we can't play anymore. And everyone loves it. And the priest, he realizes we're too tired to go on. So he says, okay, guys, it's enough from you guys. Now we will take over. And he snaps his fingers and a boy runs out, comes back with a laptop that he puts a mini jack cable into. He puts an MP3 list. Suddenly Hungarian traditional music is playing. We've been invited to dance and we have a wonderful time. But I still have to ask, why this hesitation? Why? I remember that in another town that we went to, there was a wedding going on and there were no musicians. And we had asked if we were allowed to play at the wedding. And they looked at us and said, no, we are good Christians. And I thought, this is why I left Iran. What's going on? And I asked the priest, I said, what is going on? And the priest said, well, you see, it's not that we're against music. You know that a lot of good music comes from this region. It's that now we are in our fasting period. This is the period we don't have parties and music. And I said, what? We didn't know. I'm very sorry. I hope we didn't offend. But wait a minute. If this is your fasting period, you're the priest. How did you invite us to play in your village? And he said, well, that's what they asked me in the church when I said we're going to have a party. They said, how can you suggest this? And I answered the only way that I could answer. I said, well, if in our fasting village God sends us a band from Amsterdam, who are we to refuse? Now I'm going to leave you with a tiny coda, because before we left that village, the next morning we were invited to have breakfast with the priest, and we were all sitting at the table, and this priest, he was very interested in us, where we came from. We were interested in him, and he asked us where we're from, and of course, you know, a bunch of leftist, anarchist, kind of like not very religious. So I was asking that person, so are you a Christian? And he said, no, secular, my parents are Christian, secular Jewish parents. And when he reached me, I knew that he would expect secular, but parents are Muslim. So I said, well, secular parents were communist, and he immediately went like this, you know. But then we asked him his story. And the guy said, well, you know what? I grew up in this village, and this is a Catholic village. And I wasn't supposed to be the priest. We had an old Catholic priest, and I was the son of the parents with the sawmill, and I would just take over. I fell in love with a Jewish woman. I was even thinking I will marry her. And then I met a Greek Orthodox priest. And I looked into his eyes and something magical happened and I thought, yes, this is my calling. So I studied Greek Orthodoxy. I became a Greek Orthodox priest. And when the village lost their priest, when the old Catholic priest, I don't know if he retired or he went away, when they were looking for a new priest and the church wanted to send a new priest? They said, no, we already have one. And I became the Greek Orthodox priest of this Catholic village. And I said, okay, this sounds amazing and very open-minded, but the thing is that you seem to be so open-minded. How does the church deal with it? Because obviously for the Catholics it's an insult that you're now sitting here, but even the Greek Orthodox Church, a lot of things that you say might not be in line with what they say. And he said, yeah, they cut me off. I'm no longer part of the hierarchy. And I said, wow, this must be hard. And he said, yeah, it's very hard for them, yeah. Yeah, he said, they lost something, they lost something. For me, it's, and I said, but okay, they lost something, but even for you, like, I'm not religious, but I can imagine that you need to charge yourself spiritually, intellectually. How do you do it? Because as a priest, you have to go, and I don't know, like, how does it feel now to be completely without these ties? And he says, well, I save my money, and every 4 years I have enough to afford me one long-distance, far trip, and I get a plane, and I go to Nepal, and I go to a cloister of the Nepalese Buddhists, and I sit there and I meditate with them, and it charges me, and then I come back, and I can resume my duties as a Greek Orthodox priest in this Catholic village. Now, his name is Father Ireneu. I've never met him since, but still, to this day, he teaches me so many things. Thank you very much.